You can feel free to remove yourself from the video, but at the end, during questions and answers, I would ask if you would all please put your videos on so that I can figure out who's talking to me and I can look at you in the eyes when you're talking. Danielle has had this for 1 year, suffered 10 years plus, only got debilitating late last year. Susan, all right. And let me see, do we have everybody on here who's supposed to be on here? 8. So we're short one person right now, but that's all right. They're going to get the recording. So everybody who is on, who I can see, just nod that you can hear me. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you. Who is missing? All right. Somebody doesn't have their camera on, but that's okay. So what I'm going to be covering today is, by the way, my name is Dean. I'm a physical therapist. My name is Dean Volk. I'm a physical therapist. I am founder of Sciatica Relief Now. I have a website, sciaticareliefnow.net. And I wrote that book. Thank you in the middle there, Miss Danielle. Yes, I wrote the book on sciatica relief. Literally, I wrote Sciatica Relief Now. And I started working online about 4.5 years ago. I had 3 clinics in the Charlotte, North Carolina area and a cash practice in the Charleston, South Carolina area that I wound up getting out of and selling in the middle of 2020. I started my Facebook group, Sciatica and Piriformis Syndrome Relief Group, back in 2018, I believe, sort of on a whim. Being over 50 at the time, I didn't know how to start a Facebook group, so I actually had to Google it to figure out, all right, how do I start a Facebook group? I started it. I had no idea that it was going to be growing to over 16,000 people in 4 years with very little effort. I had no idea how many people were hurting, but that was sort of the impetus for me to go, all right, I don't need to be running 3 clinics and having employees and just having the headache of trying to hold a big operation together. So I sold my practices and went, hey, I'm doing this online. In addition to that, I moved from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way across the country to California. We live in Santa Monica right now and live in the vacation lifestyle, actually, because it's between like 68 and 73, 90%, 95% of the days, although right now it says it's 58, but I think like the real feel outside is about 60 something, because in the sun, it's sort of the desert sun. So needless to say, it's really nice. So, and it's extremely expensive out here, but we're managing. So what we are going to be covering today, like you guys signed up for, number 1, why your sciatica is not going away. Number 2, why MRIs, medication, ice, heat, creams, braces, and generic exercises are not helping you like they should and are just a Band-Aid approach to healing. Number 3, we're going to talk about what brings long-term relief and healing. Number 4, we're going to talk about 3 things that you can start today, right now, that will help you start down the road to recovery. And then after I get my little presentation done, I'm going to open it for questions and answers. We'll probably go through an exercise or 2 that I'm going to be mentioning about how you get long-term relief, either during that section or during the section of why generic exercises that you can look up on Google and YouTube that many of you probably have already tried and done and probably have not had much success with, or you wouldn't be sitting on this call. So first of all, thanks for jumping on. Thanks for being brave enough to have your faces be shown. And I'm sorry that you're dealing with this. I'm sorry that you're dealing with this for way too long, even though whoever it was said that they've only been dealing with this for 10 days. To me, that's still way too long because it can be demoralizing, debilitating, beyond frustrating. I had about 2 months after I started my online or the Facebook group, my wife woke up one morning and looked at me and said, it hurts from my butt to my heel. Being the compassionate, amazing husband and man that I am, I started laughing because I thought she was teasing me, because why in the world would she get an idea that she should be hurting from her butt to her heel at this time in our lives when she's never had it? didn't do anything differently to aggravate anything. And I just figured, because I'd been talking about it for 2.5 months and she had heard me doing my online webinars at the time when I was doing them, I just assumed that she was feeling a little bit left out and wanted some attention, until she stood up and started walking like a 95-year-old woman. And I realized, you're not kidding me. And she goes, why would I kid you? And I go, it's never happened before. So this is just like coincidence that 2.5 months after I start a Facebook group, you just decide that, anyway. So it took her about 3/4 of the day before she finally said, okay, you can help me now, because I offered it right away, because I know the pain that it can be. Although I can honestly say I never had a patient come in as fresh and as raw as she was, because it was just within 2 hours of her getting it. Actually, she woke up with it. So I saw her the moment she started. And when I saw her walking, it hurt me to watch her walk, because she's a gorgeous little lady. She doesn't walk like a 95-year-old, because she's not 95. She looks great for 80, but she's not 80 either. But we started that afternoon doing some things that I knew we should do. And for her, it was so bad, I couldn't even get her to do an exercise, because any breath caused a zinger down her leg anytime I had her shift. It was just, she was incapacitated, just sitting on the couch. And I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. And I've never actually had to do this with a client, because I never got to see them so fresh in their pain. But I said, we are going to find 2 or 3 positions that you can actually move into that are not excruciating. One of them, she just had to stand up, leaning a little bit to one side. The second one, she sat on the edge of the couch, just as still as she can be. The third one, she sat on the couch with her elbow on the armrest. And I said, okay, those are the 3 positions that we are going to do right now. You're going to get into one of those positions. When you start feeling pain, you're going to move into another position. When you start feeling pain, you're going to go to the third position. And I kid you not, it was 5 seconds that she was able to sit with her arm on the chair, or arm on the couch. Then it was about 3 or 4 seconds where she was able to stand up. She felt decent. It started paining. Any little sign of the pain coming back, I had her change the position. And after about 10 to 15 minutes of just doing this, she was able to get up to 25 to 30 seconds of relief in each of those positions. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less. And we did that for about 45 minutes to an hour. And she was able to get 2-3 minutes of relief in each position. And kept working with that. And then when she would start getting comfortable, I started working on some of the exercises that I knew we needed to do. And don't hate me, but within a week, she was out walking a couple miles a day without pain. And I told her, like I tell all my clients, this is a marathon, not a sprint for recovery, a full recovery from this. I wish I could snap my fingers. I wish I had a pill. I mean, if I had a pill that I can give you to get you out of pain right now, I would gladly do it, but it doesn't exist. And if someone tells you that with 2 exercises, you're going to feel relief and you're never going to deal with this again, it's time to run, because it's a lie. It just doesn't exist. Because here's what goes on in your body. When you get any type of irritation of your sciatic nerve, think of it like a cut on your arm. It wants to heal, but if you keep doing this to it, you're going to be ripping the scab off, irritating the scab, getting it infected, and just continually have problems on and on much longer than you should, simply because you're aggravating it. So what we need to do, and one of the 3 things that you can start doing today to help you start to overcome this, is learn what positions, what movements, and what activities aggravate your pain. Because if you can learn those things and you can stop doing those things starting today, either, and you're going, Dean, but every time I stand up, it's a trigger, or every time I sit, it's a trigger, or every time I lay down, it's a trigger. I have to do those things. I know, I understand, but if there's a way that you can do those things a little bit differently, or for a shorter duration than what you have been doing, you will start getting a little bit better, and you'll stop triggering. It's like if you put a ace bandage around your arm and you still scratched it, guess what happens? It's still going to be irritated. The less you can play with that sciatic nerve, the less you can get into the positions, the movements, and the activities that trigger the pain, the better off you're going to be. So Why is your sciatica not going away like you hoped it would by now? Real simple, real common sense. You're doing the wrong treatments for it. And I know you're probably going, that's not what my doctor says. It's not what my chiropractor says. It's not what my therapist says, my massage therapist, my physiotherapist. If you were doing the right treatments, you know what you would be noticing? You would be noticing that your symptoms were getting better, whether it be less intense, less frequent. You'd be able to move better. You would be noticing some type of improvement through your day. How do I know that? Because I've been watching this for 30 years of my career. When people are on the right treatment approach, their countenance is encouraged. They're feeling hopeful because they're starting to see themselves improve. It may not be a straight line, and it may be like this because our natural tendency is, hey, when we're not hurting, guess what? We can do more, and we do those things and we don't realize what's triggering the pain. So if you can learn what your triggers are as you're getting better, guess what? You'll heal faster because you won't be doing this to yourself and ripping up that scab and causing the body to start the healing process all over again. And the way I like to explain the wrong treatment approach, although I feel like I just beat it dead to a horse, it's like beating a dead horse. I don't know what I said before, but it didn't sound right. But doing the wrong treatment is as ridiculous as this. If I am driving down the road and my tires, and I pop a tire goes flat, and I bring it into the garage and I get treatment for my tire and they change my oil, but they don't mess with my tire, my car might run more smoothly and sound better. But did I take care of the problem? No, but the person who changed the oil did a great job and they worked on my car, but it didn't have anything to do with my problem. Even though it may have needed an oil change. Am I any better off driving on that blown out tire now that my oil's changed? And I'm not. In the same way, I have learned that stretching that painful leg, trying to do piriformis stretches, trying to do hamstring stretches, trying to do nerve glides or flossing on that painful side, not only is it painful and irritating, but it really doesn't do much for you in the long run, even though you may get a little temporary relief simply because after causing pain to yourself trying to get it done, when you stop, it's going to feel better. And I liken it to this. If this side of my head was sore and I went to the doc and the doc said, Dean, I want you to do this 25 times, 5 times a day, come back to me in 2 weeks and tell me how you feel. And if it's a problem, what we'll do is we'll change your medication or maybe get you an x-ray or all the other things that you guys have heard from this. It would be totally stupid for me to be doing this to myself 25 times, 5 times a day, thinking that that is going to calm down the soreness on this side of my head. Does everybody agree with that? So let me ask you a question. Is it any more ridiculous to think that rubbing on it and digging on it is going to do any better, or taking it and stretching it and trying to loosen it up and break up the scarring and calm down the muscle spasms and ease up the trigger points and loosen it? Is that any different than just pounding on it? But what's amazing, I always tell people this, I get pounded for 25 times. It's like, oh crap. And I stop and it's like, whoa, that actually feels better now because I'm not beating the crap out of it and I'm not doing the thing that's aggravating it. And so the pounding of it compared to stopping the pounding actually feels better. So I believe that I'm feeling better until about 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour down the line. And what happens? Everything comes rushing right back, like most of your symptoms after the wrong exercises. Does everybody relate to that? All right. So why are MRIs, medications, ice, heat, creams, braces, and generic exercises not the answer for you? If you guys, well, obviously you guys are on one of the 3 or 4 pages that I advertise this class on, but how many of you have seen somebody comes on and just says, oh, I've got this, 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 and this. And the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and 10th thing that everybody tells them is, you got to get an MRI so you know what's wrong with you. Have you guys all seen that? Have all you guys got MRIs? Okay, good for some of you who didn't. I'm sorry for those of you who did, but you know what? Sometimes an MRI will actually correlate with your symptoms. Other times the doc will say, it looks great, I can't see anything. Or, you know what, there's a bulge, but that has nothing to do with your symptoms. Or you've got degenerative disc disease. How many of you have degenerative disc disease? How many of you know that that is as normal as my gray hair on my head? And my head doesn't hurt except when I'm pounding on it, but the gray hair on my head is the equivalent to your degenerative disc disease. It happens. Oh, for people 35 years old, 50% of people have degenerative disc disease. And if they are telling you that that's your problem, ask them, are you sure it wasn't there 2 years ago before my pain started? Because if it was, that's not my problem. Or how many of you were comfortable when you had the MRI done? Were you comfortable laying down? Comfortable as far as your symptoms go? I mean, it's claustrophobic in that freaking tube, but is laying down the worst position for all of you? Yes, yes, no, no, no. So laying down's not the worst position, yet you had your MRI done in a laying down position. And sometimes if it shows it for those people who that's not their worst position, and the MRI shows you've got a bulging disc or a herniated disc or a pinched nerve or stenosis or something, but this isn't even my worst position. Does that really have any, my mind is totally blank on the word I'm looking for. Wow, it's gone. That doesn't imply that the problem that they're seeing may not have anything to do with your standing pain. Because when you stand up, correlation, thank you. All right, who's Danielle in there? I can't, okay, right in the middle on my screen. Thank you, Danielle. Correlation, it's a tough word. A lot of letters in that sucker, but man, that totally just, it was gone. So yes, it has no correlation to your symptoms. Many times people are comfortable taking their MRIs and I go, so if you're in a comfortable position, why do you think that anything that they find that is totally wrong and should be painful, why is that that's not your problem? I had a lady the other day who said, hey, I've got a herniation. It's on the left-hand side, but all my symptoms are on the right. I go, well, that's awesome because the herniation has nothing to do with your symptoms. Because the herniation on the left side was hitting the left nerve roots as they were going down. If it was a problem, guess where she would be hurting? Down her left leg. I've had clients who've come to me who said my MRI is the worst that the doctor had ever seen, but I hardly have any symptoms. And I always tell people, if your doctor ever tells you that he's never seen anything as bad as what you have, it's time to find a new doctor. Because why in the world would you trust somebody who has never seen anything as bad as what you have, thinking that they can help you? So doctors are shooting themselves in the foot by scaring you, thinking, hey, this is the worst I've ever had and I know I can fix it. It's like, how do you know? You've never seen anything this bad. So just a side note. So me and MRIs, I honestly don't care what your MRI looks like. I want to know what your symptoms are. And I think all of you would agree, if I can knock your symptoms out, does it really matter what your MRI shows? No. Is it nice to know that you have a bulging disc? Sure, nice to know, but it's not really going to affect a treatment approach that I do, simply because I'm not treating that disc. I can't push that disc back in. I'm not treating a herniation. The only thing and the one exception that I do say is, hey, if someone has spondylolisthesis, and all that means is there's a shift in their spine like this. So that means I don't want to do any extension exercises, because what that's going to do is put more of a pressure and a slippage forward, which can do a lot of damage. But the good thing is I don't need to know that from an MRI, because either number one, in my clinic, I could have felt it. But number two, if you have spondylolisthesis and you go and do one of the typical press ups that everybody says you need to do when you have leg pain, that's going to cause increased pain. So you're going to stop it anyway, just naturally. So what did I mention? I mentioned MRIs, the medications, the ice, the heat, the creams, the braces, and all these generic exercises. You can look up sciatica exercises online, and you will get the press ups, you'll get the knee to opposite shoulder stretch, the hamstring stretch, the nerve flossing, the bridging, the core strengthening. And there's nothing wrong with those exercises in and of themselves, but you have, and the person who put that out there has no idea how that's going to affect you or what your symptoms are before they put that out to know whether these will be right for you. So the big go-to for physical therapists and chiropractors and trainers are the press-up activities where you're laying on your stomach and you're pressing up to arch your back up, because that's supposedly going to take all the pain out of your leg. For some of you, it may take some pain out of your leg, but then you go stand up and guess what happens? The pain comes right back. Or it might even increase your pain depending on what's going on in your back. And it stumps a lot of physical therapists who are McKenzie trained because, hey, this is supposed to work like that. It's like, well, how do you know what part of the bulge is the problem? How do you know that when you're going into that position, you're not causing more of a problem in the disc than what was there before? So I'm against all these generic exercises, and everybody goes, but Dean, you have a course that teaches people how to do exercises. And you're right, I do. The difference, what I do compared to all these generic exercises is in my courses and everything that I do, I train you how to assess your body and movements in different positions. And by doing the assessment, you're going to find out which position is the most comfortable and the easiest. And that's what I exercise in. I don't do the typical physical therapy, chiropractor, doctor thing. If you came to me with a tight hamstring, why would anybody think that taking a tight hamstring, pulling it tighter and stretching it would relax it and make it feel better? Do any of you go into your kitchen, try to open up a jar that's tight and go, hey, you know what? If I just make this a little bit tighter, that's going to loosen it for me? No, doesn't make sense. As a physical therapist for the first 15 years of my career, I did that because that's what I was taught. That's what all the gurus taught me. That's what you have to do when you have a tight hamstring muscle. You got to take it and pull it because that's going to loosen it and feel better. It doesn't work anywhere else in life other than the human body. And I don't believe it works as well as stretching the looser side and the more comfortable side. Because when you stretch the side of the body that's looser, more comfortable, and less restricted, guess what happens to your body? You're putting your body in a position of comfort, tension eases, and guess what happens to the tight side of your body? It relaxes, and you actually increase flexibility on your more restricted side. So that's why I don't like generic exercises, because that's what they are. They're generic. If you go to a doctor, a chiropractor, or a physical therapist, and they hand you a pre-printed sciatica exercise sheet, it's time to find a new therapist, chiropractor, or doctor, especially if they don't go over each and every exercise with you, watch you do it, and tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Because they're basically just hoping that, hey, these exercises will work. And guess what? I was one of those physical therapists for 15 years. And 20% of my clients really loved me because they got better. To this day, I still don't know how, but it happened. So 15 to 20% of you will get better with those generic exercises without any real instruction. So what else? The creams, all the medications in the world, all the injections in the world. I am not against anybody getting pain relief. Please hear me when I say I don't like the creams. I don't like the medications. I don't like the injections. I don't like them if people are depending on them for their total treatment, because there's no cream, there's no medication, there's no injection that's going to heal your body. What it's going to do at best is artificially decrease the intensity or the severity of your pain, which is going to make you believe that things are getting better, which is going to cause you to do those things that trigger your pain. It's like putting an ace bandage around my cut saying, hey, look, it's not a problem. I could scratch it because it's not hurting and I can't see it. But what happens when I take it off 2 hours later? I do the same irritation, maybe not as intense because it's protected a little bit. But if you take that ace bandage off and start doing that, it's going to have the same effect. In the same way, you start taking medications or an injection that artificially decreases your symptoms, it's going to lead you to do things that you normally couldn't do which has the potential of doing more damage and prolonging the healing. Does that all make sense? All right. So that was point 2. Point 3. So what brings relief and long-term healing? The thing that everybody comes here and listen to. Number 1, you've got to learn how to balance out the imbalances in your body. And let me explain what that means. Anytime your body has tightness, stiffness, soreness, pain, discomfort, anything out of the ordinary going on in your body, the natural response of your body will be to compensate for itself. And if you don't know what that looks like, think of the last person you saw walking around on a really bad sprained ankle. Why is their head, their neck, their shoulders doing this? It's because what happens in your body is when you have a pain or a problem, the area immediately around the body is going to do this. It's going to tighten up. It's going to constrict. It's going to try to protect, naturally so, from further damage. So the whole bottom part of, say it's your right ankle, the whole bottom part of your right leg below your knee is going to be doing this to stabilize that ankle so no further damage occurs. That's awesome, except for the fact when you try to walk, that all those muscles and that pain is now still there. All those muscles are out of commission, which means everything's got to shift. So your body is compensating for itself, which causes this to pull here, this to pull here. Your body's out of balance, right side versus left side. It adds tension. It adds strain to your body. What that does, now you have all this physical tension going through your body, not to mention all the emotional and mental stress that you have when you have the pain. So now you've got this physical stress in your body, and you guys all know that if you had a chain and you pulled on it, the area that would feel it the most would be the weakest link, right? That's where it would be damaged. So guess what part of your body is going to take up the brunt of all this extra physical tension and stress? The part of your body that is doing this to try to help protect where the problem is. So now your body not only is fighting the pain from the injury, the disc, the nerve, whatever is being irritated, now your body's having to go, hey, we've got to fight all this extra tension that's causing extra tension on the area where the problem is. So your body can't even focus on healing. It's just focusing on fighting itself, trying to balance itself out. So what brings long-term relief and healing? Number 1, learning how to balance out those imbalances, because if you can take the stress off those areas, guess what's going to happen? Your body can focus on healing. The second thing is you've got to learn how, or you've got to train your body to be stable while in a balanced position. Okay. So the more stable you are in a balanced position, guess what happens should you get into a rear end car accident? Your body's going to be able to handle it because it's balanced. This isn't pulling here. This isn't relaxed here. But what happens if that's the case? You're going to get thrust forward. This is going to lock into place because it's already tight. This part of your body is going to have to make up the difference and absorb all the extra forces. And it's going to cause a massive, a much larger problem than you would have had your body been balanced. And I learned this through several clients who came to me after having been rear-ended in really slow car accidents. I'm talking they got rear-ended at 5 miles an hour, which in essence should feel like that. Shouldn't really do a lot of damage, but these people walked in like they got hammered at 60 miles an hour. And I always thought, and some of them were faking, because I can detect when someone's faking, because I can also watch what happens when they get in and out of their car when they come into my clinics. But a lot of these people, when I would go to try to assess the imbalances in their body with various motions, they were horrendously out of balance. And so my thinking is, hey, if somebody is really tight on one side, loose on the other, and they get hit evenly from the back, guess what's going to happen? That tight side is going to lock into place. That loose side is going to have to take up all the extra forces. And guess what happens to all those muscles and tendons and tissues? They get phenomenally stressed, which causes much more of an injury. That's why, and I don't tell you that it's good to drink and drive, because it's not. But when someone's drunk in a passenger seat and they get hit, they're probably not going to be nearly as injured as the person who's driving if the driver was not drunk, just because your body's much more relaxed and you're not going to tense up as much and as quickly. So like I said, don't drink and drive, but that is the reason why people who are in accidents when they're drunk are not nearly as injured as those who are not. Does that make sense? All right, so staying balanced and staying stable in that balanced position are what is needed for long-term healing. And lastly, number 4, 3 things that you could start today to start the healing process. And these are simple, basic things. Number 1, stay hydrated. I read reports of 60 to 70% of Americans and people in, well, Americans are walking around in a slightly dehydrated condition. And when you're in a dehydrated condition, that means your cells are not functioning optimally. That means you're not clearing out inflammation as effectively as you could had your cells been working at their normal capacity. All right. And staying hydrated means, and I'm sorry for you people in the UK, I only know this in pounds and ounces. So if you can change the stones to pounds in your head, that's great. I can't. I don't even know how much a stone weighs. To me, it all depends on the size of the stone, but obviously I don't know the stone weight. But if you take your body weight in pounds divided by 2, that's how many ounces of, I used to say water, but good liquid that you need to have in order to keep your body adequately hydrated. And then there's a little bit of a variation if you're in a really humid area versus a really dry area. Obviously, drier areas, you need a little bit more water. More humid areas, not as much so, because the water's not evaporating from your body nearly as quickly. So you need to stay hydrated. Number 2, you need to get enough sleep, which often is very much hindered by pain, but your body heals while you sleep. And third, I've already touched on this, and that's you've got to learn what your triggers are. And I tell people, just remember the mnemonic AMP, A-M-P. The triggers are any activity, movement, or position that aggravates your symptoms. Okay, so if you can stay hydrated, get enough sleep, and stop doing those things that trigger your pain, you will be much better off. Does that all make sense? All right. And then there does happen to be a good trigger. I told you how with my wife, when we started, we found those positions that she was very comfortable in. So the more positions that you can find, or the more things that you can find that relax your body and ease the tension in your body, the better off you will be. Okay? Because when you put your body in a position of comfort and ease, the body will relax and ease up and tension will calm down. When you put your body in a position that's not very comfortable, your body's going to compensate and it's going to add tension. And you all know that you don't need added physical tension on top of the emotional and mental stress and tension that this already causes you. All right. So that actually concludes what I wanted to teach today, but people generally have questions, and it looks like there's one. Oh, nope, it just popped up with correlation again. Thank you for that again, Danielle. Does anybody have, what I'm going to do, I'm going to see if I can I unmute everybody all at once? I should be able to. Mute. I have a mute all, but I don't have an unmute all. Ask to unmute. All right, everybody, you can unmute yourselves, and one at a time, what we're going to do. All right, I'm getting a lot of feedback from somebody, but I will block that out of my head. Anybody have any specific questions for me?
Yes.
Miss Peggy.
Yes. Okay, a couple of questions. What do you consider good liquid other than water?
Good question. You know what? I'm going to mute everybody. All right, Peggy, you can unmute yourself, because I don't know if it was yours that was I was getting feedback on, but good liquids are, I drink a lot of organic orange juice just because it's high in vitamin C. The reason I used to say you have to only drink, I would say, hey, just drink X amount of ounces of water. But if the water doesn't have nutrients in it, if it's sort of depleted of nutrients, you can actually start wiping out some needed nutrients in your body like calcium, potassium, magnesium, if you're just drinking water without any type of minerals in it. So just be mindful that your body does need calcium, potassium, magnesium. Magnesium is something that most people seem to be lacking in, which is huge for muscle cramping, muscle healing. So I'm actually going to start not advertising. My wife and I are using a magnesium supplement that I think I will put. I have like an Amazon. Hey, these are the top products that I think if you wanted to start some things, whether ice pack, heat pack, pillows, different things, I have those in a sheet that I sort of say, hey, these are the things that I have found to be most beneficial. If I can find what we use on Amazon, I'll put that on there, because I know magnesium helps a lot with cramping, helps with healing, and is just a good overall mineral that most people are lacking in. So, 1 second, Peggy. Louise, were you on another call that we did? You look extremely familiar. Have we talked before? All right, sorry, you just have a familiar face. How does the numbness stop as well as the pain? Great question. The numbness is basically caused, Danielle, by your nerve being a little bit more compressed than what it is than when you're feeling pain. So that's going to take time. It's going to take time for inflammation to calm down, and it takes time for a nerve to heal. And everybody goes, well, if it's numb, that means it's damaged. I'm going, not necessarily. And some people live with numb toes or a numb foot for years. And it doesn't mean that it's malfunctioning. It just means that the nerve, the part of the nerve that innervates that part of the foot, or if it's another part of your body, that part of the nerve that innervates that area has just been compressed and compromised. But just because you have numbness doesn't mean that it's totally damaged and non-functional. Does that make sense? All right, hold on 1 second. Susan, if the problems noted on my MRI aren't necessarily correlated with my pain, what's causing my pain? That's a great question. I don't know. And it could be that because they didn't see any spinal issues, that a muscle might just be spasming. It could be from your piriformis muscle. It can be an irritation from a joint that they didn't pick up on. And you know what's interesting about MRIs? You can take your scan to 3 or 4 different radiologists, and they're probably going to come out with different findings just simply because of what they're used to, what they've been trained in. So it doesn't mean that it wasn't on there. It just means that whoever saw it didn't pick it up. Are you having symptoms on the different side from what they found? Or are they saying that you pretty much came up with a clean MRI? Here, I'll unmute. There you go.
Okay. It wasn't a clean MRI. It was slightly messy. But I was listening to what you said about, you can have a messy MRI, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's causing your pain. I mean, I definitely have some degeneration. I definitely have some bulging disc. So if that's not necessarily what's causing the pain, I don't know what is. I mean, there was certainly inflammation noted.
Yeah. Well, I posted something yesterday because I had a lady who's been following me for 3.5 years, and I keep going, Rhonda, when are we going to work with you? Because she's going from one chiropractor to another, one PT to another, one doctor to another. And she goes, well, my MRI shows this. I go, that's fine. I honestly, I don't mean this cold-heartedly, but I don't care what someone's MRI shows. I mean, unless there's like a massive tumor that needs to be taken care of, obviously my heart goes out, and my heart goes out to anybody who's got a messed up MRI. But if it's not correlating with your symptoms, or if it's something that has to be surgically repaired, which is very, very rare overall, then that's something to be concerned about. But if they can't tell from an MRI what is causing the problem, the MRI to me is kind of worthless. And hey, let's start focusing on your symptoms and how can we balance out your body and have your body heal from whatever's causing that so that your symptoms can be gone. Does that make sense?
Kind of, except that the symptoms change. So.
And they do all the time with sciatica. And I tell people, if your symptoms are changing in intensity, location, areas of your, and it could be different areas of your body that start feeling pain. If your symptoms are changing, that's an awesome sign. It shows that you don't have something that is like, my son said, I might have broken my foot. I go, well, is the pain constant? He goes, no, it sort of comes and goes. I go, then your foot's not broken. He goes, how do you know? I go, because a broken bone is going to feel like a broken bone constantly. It's not going to be, hey, I feel pretty good right now. Ooh, I feel broken now. In the same way that if you have symptoms that are changing and fluctuating and are not constant, it shows that you don't have one thing that is causing the problem. Like if someone has piriformis syndrome and their piriform, that means their piriformis muscle is pierced by their sciatic nerve. So anytime that piriformis muscle contracts, guess what happens to that sciatic nerve? It's getting pinched, compressed, and aggravated. And if that's consistent, you go, okay, hey, you know what? It might be the piriformis muscle. So let's take care of the piriformis muscle. Let's take care of your symptoms. So knowing exactly what's causing the sciatica is very, very hard. Because if it's not a definitive disc that looks like pushing on the specific nerve that's correlating to your symptoms, the MRI is honestly worthless for that condition. That make sense?
Yes, I guess. Except I thought that the compression I have, I thought that was what was pinching on the nerve.
It might be, and it might be only in certain positions. And that's why that's why learning your triggers and what's causing what position, movement, or activity is causing that pinching, to try to figure out, okay, how do we avoid doing that or doing it in a different way so it doesn't pinch so much? And so is it every single time you get into a seated or standing position that you notice your symptoms?
Well, no, sometimes my symptoms go away completely. And so, for example, the whole reason I'm here is all of a sudden they started to come back and I have no idea what triggered it, other than perhaps too much walking on one day. And then a couple days later, all of a sudden I was in pain, but it was a different pain. I've never had pain lying down. And then all of a sudden I had pain lying down.
And yet, so your symptoms are
frustrating.
changing, and now it's like, hey, I didn't have anything, now I have it, and now this is something totally new. So something is irritated in a little bit different way. And I mean, yeah, everybody's always looking for, okay, tell me what it is. I'm like, oh, well, I could tell you what it is, or I can teach you how to avoid having the symptoms. Which would you prefer?
Well, I would like both.
I would like both. And some people have to know the reason. It's like oftentimes it's impossible to know the reason. And another thing, going back to that lady who I was trying to work with for 3.5 to 4 years, she wrote me yesterday and said, Dean, I think you're right. She said, I just got an injection into my L3-4 area and my symptoms are gone. The problem is the L3-4 area is totally clear on my MRI, so that's not where the problem is. She said, so I think I'm believing you that the MRI is not the definitive answer for what my problem is. And I went, because I think she had a severe bulge in L5-S1, but her symptoms weren't correlating to L5-S1. And there was nothing that was being seen in L3-4, but the doctor said, but your symptoms, the nerve root that comes out of L3-4 is where you're complaining of your symptoms. So he just went in really blindly and went, hey, let's just try this and see. And her symptoms were significantly less. And I told her, I'm glad your symptoms are significantly less. Please don't do those things that aggravated it to begin with, because now that you're artificially decreasing your pain by putting medication in there, that doesn't mean you're healed. It just means that the inflammation has calmed down because of the steroid that's in your body. So you still need to balance out and calm things down so that they don't aggravate again. Does that make sense? All right. Sorry, I couldn't answer you definitively like you want, but it's really hard. That's why I get so many patients who come and say, or clients who come in and say, well, my MRI shows that I've got a herniated disc at L3-4. My L4-5 has a bulge. I have SI joint issues along with piriformis issues, and I have bursitis in my hip. And I tell them, no, you don't. You can't have all, Your symptoms may look like they're all those things, but there is one thing that's going on that's causing your body to compensate, that's causing all these other symptoms to flare up. And there's so many overlapping symptoms in a lot of these diagnoses that it drives people crazy. I have one lady who's actually in the medical field, and I said, look, you know too much. She's saying, well, my fibromyalgia is flaring up because of my SI joint. My SI joint is weak because I have a weak this. I mean, she listed off 15 things. And I said, well, I can help your symptoms to calm down, but you're going to have to get out of your own head thinking that, well, it's my SI joint. No, it's my bursitis. Nope, it's my piriformis. Nope, it's the spondylosis. Nope, it's the fibromyalgia. I go, you know what? You may have all those and that's good and fine, but how about we just knock your symptoms out? She started doing some of the exercise. She goes, I can't believe it. It feels better. I said, I know. When you balance your body out, your body relaxes and the body can focus on healing. So whether it's caused by 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the things that you have underlying, I don't care. We want to get your body balanced. So instead of the body fighting against itself, it can focus on healing what's aggravated. Does that make sense? If the problems noted in my arm are not necessarily correlate, Louise says, how do we learn to balance our bodies? Great question. By learning how to assess the imbalances in your body. And when you learn how to assess the imbalances in your body, you work the side of the body that's looser, more comfortable, less restricted, and that will balance out the imbalances. And I wish I can teach it to you in 20 minutes, but that's what I basically built my whole course around was, okay, here's how you balance this out. And everybody's going, well, which exercises do you use? And I wish I can say, look, I've been doing this for 15 years. And the exercises that I give in my course are just about all that I have in my arsenal, because everybody's body is going to respond to pain differently. If 3 people have an identical MRI, I guarantee you they will not have identical symptoms. And I guarantee you that their bodies will not be out of balance in the same way. But because people's bodies do compensate, I can guarantee you they will be out of balance in certain areas, but I couldn't tell you which side you need to exercise because I don't know how your body's going to respond to the different things that you're doing during the day to know how it's going to compensate. That's why everything that I do, and whether you meet with me one-on-one or take a course from me or whatever you decide, if you decide, I am trying to empower you and teach you how to assess the imbalances in your body so that you can take care of yourself, because I don't want anybody depending on me. I don't want you to have to keep going to a chiropractor or a doctor or to a physical therapist or a massage therapist to get the relief that you deserve. I want to be able to empower you to learn how to assess your body, learn how to take care of it, balance it out. And then once it's balanced out, then you start working on stability exercises in the same way. We check out strength on both sides of your legs, your hips, your back. And then I only work the stronger side initially. And everybody goes, well, what about the weaker side? Doesn't the weaker side stay weak? You'd be surprised how strong your weaker side gets when you work on your stronger side. And you don't do any damage, because usually when people are weak, they're going to compensate and move in a way that is not really strengthening what they want. But when you're working your stronger, more comfortable side, guess what happens? Your weaker side actually increases in strength. Very weird, but trust me, when I went through this course 15 years ago that I learned, I sat back and I went, that's bizarre. That goes against everything I learned. It goes against everything I believed. I mean, I used to lift weights. I used to train people. I'm going, this just is messing with my mind. And it did. So how do we learn to balance? So I have pain in my hip area and numbness in my foot. How does the in-between have nothing? Can you say that again? How does the in-between have nothing? Sorry, couldn't resist. I don't know what you wanted me to say again, but hopefully I repeated it already. All right, so pain in your hip, numbness in your foot. So the area between your hip and your foot, that part of the nerve is not being as impinged as the painful area and the numb area. And don't be surprised if once you start healing things that you start getting pain in the knee area or the hamstring or the calf area and a little bit less numbness in the foot. And it can change. And that's what drives a lot of people crazy. They think they're going insane because day to day, hour to hour. Their symptoms may change, the area of their pain may change, but it's totally normal. I tell everybody with any type of sciatica, look, nothing is abnormal, okay? It can totally change on you, and people go, well, now it's flip sides. It's like, well, that side of your body is probably sick and tired of compensating for you, that it's letting you know. Or if you have a bulge that's more centralized and now it's shifted a little bit to one side or the other. But all these things are treatable. And honestly, from what I've seen and what I've experienced over the last 15 years of my career since I started treating people this way, 95 to 98% of sciatica issues can be dealt with conservatively, and they don't need all the medications, the injections, and definitely not surgery. Just a small percentage of people require surgery. Because did you know that herniations heal over time on their own? The larger the herniation, and we're talking like 20 millimeters, 17 to 20 millimeters, which are large. And that's like what, 17 millimeters? That's 1.7 centimeters. I mean, that's a nice little, sorry, I can't see my picture on here. That's a nice little herniation. But though the larger the herniation, the more likely it is to heal more quickly than a smaller herniation. So I'm trying to get to all the questions. If I'm not in pain, do I work on both sides? Great question, Susan. If you're not in pain, if your sides are bilaterally equal and balanced, you can work on both sides. That's fine. But if you're not in balance, what does the poison stop dripping on the nerve? When does the poison stop dripping on the nerve? It all depends on what that poison is coming from. It could be nerve being pinched by a disc. It could just be the inflammatory process that's going on. It all depends. Sorry, I can't answer that definitively. All right, somebody else. Question, Peggy's iPhone. What kind of water is best? And also, what if you need to buy bottled water? What kind is best? Everybody's got their own favorites. My wife's favorite right now is, I see it. It'll come to me. I can't correlate this one with what I'm trying to get to. Hold on one second. I got a great way to know. I'll be right back. What's your favorite water? Thank you. All right. Now I feel really stupid because it's Smart Water. Smart Water is her go-to right now. So sleep is important. Is it okay to take something to help you rest? What do you suggest? I will not suggest anything because that's way out of my league. But if you get some good magnesium supplements, if you need it, that will help you sleep. There's lavender. Is it lavender that helps you sleep? There's a lot of different things that help you sleep. And I've got 5 minutes. Let's try one thing. Let's everybody sit on the edge of your chair. And literally I have 5 minutes before my next meeting. So sit on the edge of your chair. And what I want you to do with your feet flat, it's going to be hard in your car, Peggy, but try this. Let's have you twist to your right side as far as you can. And then twist to your left side as far as you can. Now, does everybody have one side that definitely feels easier, looser, more comfortable, less restricted? All right. So what I want you to do, if you find that side that's easier, twist to that side nice and slowly 10 times, the easier side, the more comfortable side, just as long as it's not aggravating your symptoms. 10 times nice and slowly to the easier side. And after you're done, I usually do 2 sets, but for time's sake, we're only going to do 1. So after you're done with 10, what I want you to do is 1 time twist to the side that felt tighter and more restricted. And tell me, did that side that felt tighter and more restricted this time feel better than it did the first time you tried? So I'm getting yeses, yeses, yeses. Danielle? Yes. So 1, 2, 5 people on my screen just told me yes, that working the side of their body that was looser, more comfortable, less restricted, their easier side cause them to be a little bit more balanced now because their restricted side is less restricted. So that's a demonstration of how working the side of your body that's more comfortable can make the side that was more restricted more balanced than what it was. Typically, what we learn in PT school, like I said, if something's restricted, we go, hey, you know what? We're going to unrestrict this because we want to match this movement to that movement, which was not restricted. But what I've learned since is when I work the side of the body that's looser, more comfortable, less restricted, the side of the body that was restricted actually becomes less restricted. And so we actually, what you guys just did, you brought a little bit of balance into the trunk of your body. Does that make sense? So was it you, Louise, who said, how do we learn how to balance our body? That's one way. And I do this. I have an online course that if you guys are interested in, please email me, because on Monday, it's actually, the price is actually going to be going up. This isn't a sales tactic. It's just a fact. And I don't want, if it's something you're interested in, I'd rather you save the $300 extra that it's going up on Monday. But no harm, no foul. I will not think any more or less of you if you ever see me again, work with me again, think I'm a joke, think I'm not a joke. But this is what I do. This is my passion. I always tell people my goal before I retire, and I'm sliding down the 50s into the 60s now, towards 60 at least. I want to be able to help 100,000 people gain their lives back before I call it a day. So I've got I haven't been keeping track, but it's got to be now between 5,000 and 7,000 people in the last 15 years, just because I had 3 clinics, and now that I've been online, I've done several hundred in the last year. So I've got a while to go, but I know I can reach more people in this platform. So I call it my passion. My wife says, no, it's more like your obsession, but hey, this is what I do. So feel free to reach out through the emails, and every one of you will be getting a recording of this so you can watch it back. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. I literally have to jump off here because in 1 minute I'm meeting with somebody else to who has a private consultation with me. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I should be emailing this to you, should be by the end of the day, and I am on Pacific time, so it's only 2 o'clock my time right now. So hopefully within the next 4 hours, you should have the recording of this in your inbox. All right. You are very welcome. Thank you guys. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.